Welcome, everybody. Here we are, Dr. Zoo, Monday, 10th of August, up to episode number 97. Thrilled to have you all here today. I thought today would be an exciting journey. Lots of comments coming through already. Not sure whether we'll tackle a couple initially or get into it because it has been a big weekend, as you all know. An update was sent out, which was an important announcement. It was sent out at, or actually received. I've got one here on the 9th of August, 2026 at 5:52 Sunday. Yes, indeed, Sunday. Dr. Zoo, what a weekend. Holy dooly. Dragged in some lawyers, dragged in some specialists, got on top of things as quick as he could, decided not to go for that winery walkabout and have a relaxing time at the wineries. We have some fantastic wineries around Albury, Wodonga, a little bit further out, but they're out there. Could have had some nice cheese and sat back and relaxed, but no. Dr. Zoo decided that he'd get on top of things because there had been a development on Saturday. Can you believe it? How's that little ditty? Who can make the government, eh? And here we are. We were dealing with the government bureaucrats on Saturday, the 8th. No doubt you've received the update. So we thought we'd get on top of it as soon as we could. And we'll just go through some of the mechanics of it because no doubt. Oh, hang on. Helpful Gem has jumped in. We've got Helpful Gem has just chimed in, everybody. Let me just repeat what, here we go. I predicted this would happen last Thursday. You lot are running true to form, delay after delay. Well, thank you so much, Helpful Gem. We knew that you would write something like that. We knew this was going to be Helpful Gem's contribution to the big picture. You know why, Helpful Gem? Because we've got a logging system, a monitor on your Helpful Gem commentary, which is awesome because we're trying to do a survey. You might have heard recently that there is these prediction markets in the US of A, $160 billion. And if we tease that out a little bit and try and get Albo and his team here, who are the political bureaucrats that run the bureaucrats, which is your elected people, Helpful Gem, then you would appreciate that it could be a wonderful opportunity to create a predictions market based on the AUSTRAC responses. Now, that's what we're dealing with. We can take the half glass empty, which we know, Helpful Gem, you are indefinitely that category, or the half glass full. And we have had some crackerjack commentary over the weekend, which is amazing. So, you've got this scenario and I know we like to lash out. We want to lash out and get angry, and it's difficult because I don't think there's anyone else out there in Zoocoin world that needs to be too concerned about Dr. Zoo's layback approach. The fact that it's cost the organisation about 250,000 extra cash burn a month. It's disappointing. It could be. Anyway, that could be money better spent somewhere else, of course, but I'd rather spend it here because this is the journey. After $55 million ploughed into the organisation for long-term projects. And of course, Dr. Zoo has one goal in mind, and that's the $1,000 US a coin for his Gulf Stream. Because what I would have done, if it was open to us, would have got on a plane on Saturday morning, missed the email, and would have been watching races overseas, but not to be. Instead, Dr. Zoo was locked in a room crowded with other audio and videos happening with other legal gurus and buffins to work through the issue. So let's get to the serious part. Thank you very much for that contribution. Helpful Gem? No, hang on. It's Helpful Gem. Really appreciate that. Not sure who you want to lash out and blame, but look, there's no point blaming. There's just no point. You're going to be one of the great regulated organisations in the world. You have already the greatest product in the world. And as I said before, if you've got the capacity, the time, the finances and the ability and the desire, there's nothing to stop you trying to build your own trading platform. Nothing. It's already trading. It's been actively progressing through 4 years of pretty well, fantastic Zoocoin to Zoocoin wallet, and obviously the split chain, and everybody in a peer world and build their own systems if you think it can be done better. Beautiful. Dr. Zoo will gladly sit on your tail and make it happen. That's the sort of bloke Dr. Zoo is. He's a very flexible gentleman. Having said that, he's also patient, and it's very hard in this world to be like that. But there is a little scenario actually for everyone out there. If you think about it, it's actually your fault. When you want to really drill down, why we say that? Because you are a citizen of this great country, Australia. And when you put your hand up and you elect a politician who really has no general experience, unless they're from the Labor Party, of which they've got about 90 of the little suckers out there that are union representatives, and that's not a bad job, don't get me wrong. Being part of a union is an important part. It's played a huge role for hundreds of years to protect the rights of workers, and we love that. We don't want to see any oppression, gender or otherwise. But once you elect them, like that young 21-year-old senator from South Australia, Charlotte, how good's she? Spent $148,000 of your taxpayer money doing memes and ads. Perfect. Perfect. But once you elect them, they then, as a politician, through the appropriate cabinet ministers, because they are important people, whether you're a treasurer or, Burker, good old Tony out there, Minister for Immigration, they come out and they make appointments. They elect effectively the bureaucrats. And the bureaucrats, just giving a bit of history here so you can appreciate the situation, the bureaucrats then elect their own staff, and they have contracts and employments and consultants and things. And Dr. Zoo's seen a lot of this over the journey, and they make these big decisions. And they also assist with the drafting of the legislation, and then they get passed because the Greens get involved, and little people like David Pocock and, Jackie Lambie, they don't read the act, and then they put in words like making arrangements, and then that traps all these businesses that get caught up in this big job we've got to do to become really arms of government that relate to money laundering and counter-terrorism, all those naughty things that happen around the world. And lo and behold, there we are, Zutopia, wanting to get on with the job. Doesn't hold any money, doesn't hold any coins, doesn't do anything other than send your message through to Stripe to tell Stripe where to send the money. Isn't that amazing? One of the great concepts in the world. But the good news is protecting your assets is our mission. And that's what we've done. Made it ready for mass adoption, marketing, and all that good sort of stuff. And there you have it. It's your fault because you elected the politicians that created that chain of events. Is that amazing? Yes, it is. Indeedy. So there's no delay after delay. The system's been running beautifully. Absolutely magic. It's just a question of how you go about it and what you want to do. And if you want to sit back, relax, and let Dr. Zoo spend all his money, that's fine. That's what we do here. That's why we worked on the weekend and didn't go to the winery. We wanted to get on top of it. Now, look, I'll tackle a couple of more because we get the half glasses out of the way first, empties. We get rid of the empties and we can fill that glass back up and look forward to the half glass full contribution. Now, benevolent dreamer, beyond a bit ridiculous now. I'm not sure what you're thinking is ridiculous, but that's government, that's life. Suck it up, they say. Suck it up, princess. That's what you've got to do. You suck it up and you keep tuned to your mission, your end goal, the result. At least we're not running around this week with taser wallets, which are all sort of coming out as fake wallets now. People are losing their crypto and Bitcoin. There was 4,604 errors picked up by AI in Bitcoin. Now, aren't we glad we're not down that vortex? So while all this is happening and we're pleasantly waiting away for AUSTRAC, the world in crypto is taking a dive big time in terms of securities. And it might even turn out, from what Dr. read, that was only this morning because Dr. Zoo was busy with the AUSTRAC stuff. But the cold card, it turns out, could be an inside job. And that inside job, mate, that's what we're really worried about. That's where there's now $130 million gone, Gonski. because of the way in which they're structured and what they're doing. We're pretty comfortable and satisfied with what we're doing. So don't get worked up with the government. 90-day extension. Yes, that could suck big time, but I don't think that'll be. I don't, think that's going to be the case. And Big Dog, you're right on the money. You're not happy. You're not happy with this bullshit, as you said there in your little update there, but it's not your fault. We appreciate that because we've just been through who's to blame, and the blame is all on those that get to vote in a Western civilization world, because your votes create these people that are put in a powerful position that create these laws that end up biting you on the ass. You just got to live with it. Take the bite, put some, cream on it, fix it up and move on. Now, 90-day curse, isn't that funny? Peaceful human. Well, I'm not sure where you get that from, but entirely a matter for you. That's the way you can approach it, and that is fantastic. That is fantastic. So let's keep going through. I might get a couple more here because to get these ones out of the way. Wise newbie. My prediction was on the money. We have another potential candidate for the predictions market. You are looking good. You are looking good, wise newbie. Yes, indeedy. You're creating your own market. You could be taking bets on this and, making money like a bookie on the side. We talked about those rules, although what you should have done is front it up to the Senate inquiry in relation to gambling, and it might be a whole different story. Now, you continue to say you must have been predicting the same because your response with all the required docs was pretty impressive. No, that's just called hard work. Dr. Zoo's found over the years, one of the things that Dr. Zoo has really honed in on, appreciate the comment, wise newbie, thank you very much, but the harder you work, the luckier we become. It's a funny concept, I know, it's tough to understand, but you wouldn't believe some of the hours Dr. Zoo has done. He's slowed down a little bit recently because the old heart attack, the ticker's not going as good as it could have been. But in the old days, on average, this is not making it up, this is just telling it as it is, when we were involved as self-represented litigants facing the Australian government that spent $16 million on the original case going back in 1999, we put and continue to put in around the world because of the hours, at least 21 hours a day. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. You don't get paid overtime for that. But you get used to it. You get used to, can't do it nowadays. A bit too tired. I was a bit tired on this morning because it sort of caught up with me. I had a bit of a sleep-in actually. But no. We as soon as that official notice arrived, then let me tell you, we weren't going to sit here and have Dr. Zoo explain to our thousands, if not 10,000, 11,000 plus ZooCoin wallet holders that Dr. Zoo decided to go to the winery and not attend to the business of really getting on top of it. Because there's a bit of a game plan. Now listen, as you've seen from the update, yes, we received that came out of the blocks on the 8th. That was Saturday of the official notice from AUSTRAC, together with an email specifying all the bits and pieces. Now, I did allude to it the few days before. There was only really 4 options available to AUSTRAC under the Act. Now, they've picked this particular one. It's not as good as getting a notification that we are confirmed as registered. That would have been the absolute beauty, because we've been talking about a different thing today. We wouldn't have any half glass empties today. We'd have everybody with full glasses. But not to be. 2 of the options were pretty ugly. Very ugly, in fact. The one that Dr. Zoo was really hoping that wouldn't happen, and that didn't happen, that was the one where they do nothing. So we're sitting here today at 4:15. We're waiting desperately till 5 o'clock, close of business, and we get nothing. That's the ugliest one, because that one really is where there's a deemed refusal, and you get to enjoy all of the stories that Dr. Zoo will share, which he's had a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience before an administrative appeals tribunal. Now, they're a funny little crew, those at tribunals. In fact, Dr. Zoo just got out of one a couple of weeks ago. as he was arguing as an unrepresented litigant before the Alligator Blood Tribunal. And everybody's a genius at those tribunals. There's always someone that's better than someone else. It comes down to knowledge and the database, of course, but then, as an unrepresented litigant, you get very little respect. But alternatively, you can, at no cost to ZuCoin holders, alternatively, you can put on a nice heavyweight QC or King's Counsel these days, and at roughly 50,000 for the day, there you go. That's money that can or may not or will be or should be well spent. It gets a bit messy because you can't fight these things with no money. Money is the root of all evil, they say. It is indeed. That's the process of this. That would have been a terrible outcome. Terrible. The other one was the unilateral 30-day notice. And that one, it's not too bad, but then again, it's triggered because they say that there is so much complexity with the application that the AUSTRAC CEO must invoke that particular section, which you've seen in the email we sent out. And that one is where you do have this support in terms of, or rather the legislation is supporting the AUSTRAC CEO's position in relation to if it's complex, if the processes are complex from the applicant. Now, that wouldn't be very good either, because that means they just haven't got their head on what Zutopia is trying to do. So for all of the journey that we've had for 90 days, it's been a pretty up and down ride, but we have supplied everything, as we said earlier, and you've seen the transparency of what we send out. You're up to speed as much as we are. That would have been not a good one, because it would have meant that we just haven't got the head on it. Now, the one option they did take, which is not palatable, and I can understand the half glasses out there, and how that all sort of picks up. But anyway, they did come in and drop this official notice under section 76Q subsection 1, which is seeking more information, and it does re-trigger the 90 days. That's the worst case scenario there. What I am happy about, if there's anything to be happy about, not happy because we're all not sitting on serious money and everybody's got a problem. We get all that. Everybody's got a problem. Well, the first thing that's positive is that you haven't lost any money because there's no trading. So you can trade off market. You can trade till the cows come home with the ZuCoin to ZuCoin wallets. You can build your own exchange. We suggested to a few people. There are other options we could have engaged with. But again, look, just on the, I've only just catching up with this news today. So I'm a little bit short-handed in terms of having in front of me some real exciting and interesting developments in the crypto space, but directly relevant. And we had our meeting today with the CTO and great man Robert Novak. We've had our meetings over the weekend with Riley and his team in terms of Zutopia's aspect from the application and what we had to do for the documentations and the lawyers. And then, of course, if you sit all that together, we are far better off, because even a exchange like Bitmart, which is, as I indicated in earlier updates, and also BitMEX, they have gone down the proverbial toilet, having been, turning over billions of dollars of people's money. And it turns out that now there's a scary concept inside of Bitmart, which the owners, etc., that live in goodness knows where, are now suggesting that people can't get their money out on the withdrawal processes, even though the exchange is closed down. So that's the risks you face. That's the bottom line. What Dr. Zu has put together over all this journey for Zutopia is to long-term avoid that. It's no good, Dr. Zu, banking $1 billion and trading it out when the price is through the roof of the Zu coins, and then it sits in Panama or Guatemala or somewhere else of a unique flavour, of which there is no provisions or fallback in the laws to get that money, because they knock it off or they hang on to it. And I mean, what's the point of going all this journey, spending $55 million, and then all of a sudden finding that some wombat overseas won't release the monies because of the way in which the exchange is structured? That's always been the problem. But we're on top of it. Why are we on top of it? Because by selecting this particular Section 76Q1, Yes, time's a problem, but AUSTRAC at least have sent a message that they've been and have been reviewing the application, and they've honed in on one particular aspect, which is an expansion of the AML CTF program. We've called it the VASP program version 1, dated the 8th of August 2026. And it's a pretty powerful document, I must say. It'll actually lend itself to possibly being a template for others that don't want to go through this grief and might end up putting the systems in train. But ours is a little bit different because we've got to marry in with the successes of the split chain and how that works with the caching. We've got to marry that in with the validation of the transactions that happen wallet to wallet and the ability for the uniqueness of Stripe. There is not another platform in the world, people, in the world that achieves the successful trading outcome that what Zutopia does. And that's all about protection and maximizing that protection of the coins and money and the flow in which that works without centralization, custody, or blocking transactions and withdrawals and all those ugly things that have been happening and continue to happen and have got worse since Dr. Zu first flagged this. So it's no good going down that road. There's no point. It's better to go through the pain barrier on AUSTRAC, because what AUSTRAC's effectively doing and has done is an independent government audit. And the bonus here, you mightn't appreciate this because it doesn't cost you anything anyway, but it can be quite expensive to get independent reports based on the technology that you've created. And that's a wonderful thing. And by identifying the nature of the report that we had to produce and the program which has been created is fantastic. It is a 44-page crackerjack document. Gets me all tingly and excited on that front. Not excited because it's going to cost me another $250,000 this month in cash flow burn, but that's all right. It'll be well spent and well recovered because Zutopia will be a booming, guaranteed exchange trading marketplace that the world will sit up and take notice, and away you go. So that's part and parcel of the reaction. The reaction that Dr. Zu got on Saturday, there I was minding my own business, and all of a sudden this email popped up. Now, there are some conspiratorial theories about how in the hell we ended up getting a notice from AUSTRAC on a Saturday. And it's bizarre, really. We might be throwing this out to the Zucoin community to come up with some ideas. And, these ideas could be very fortuitous in terms of all the things of what we're thinking about, because there is one school of thought that there may have been a reaction to the letter we put out, which was preserving our rights, actually, which was done a couple of days before, which is the email that you've seen of the 4 points that I've raised to put them on notice. It could be that they were well entrenched with their reviews and investigations, which is good, and had pre-scheduled that particular email to go out on the Saturday because they missed the Friday, or they had it ready on Friday and it was scheduled. Now, that's one option, which is not hard to do. The other was that the government was actually working on Saturday, or the bureaucrats. Now, there's not a lot of takers for that option, but it's possible. Dr. Zu has experienced legal teams and government officials working as hard as Dr. Zu was when it comes to the court cases and things, but that's because there's a high pressure cooker environment, and that environment gets well and truly out of control and means you've got to put the hours in. Nevertheless, as the moment it hit our email box, the job was at hand to get the material responded. Now, to AUSTRAC's credit, they presumed or assumed that there's going to be needed a timeline for us to respond. And as you saw by the email, which you've got the complete email that went to AUSTRAC, you don't need me to go over that again. It's quite extensive, has a lot of provisions and policies and all sorts of things that are contained that they want or will need. And they were saying that could be supplied by the 7th of September. Now, maybe Dr. Zu should have taken his time and instead of listening to the half glass empties, just simply said, look, I'm busy. Dr. Zoo has a lot of things on his plate. And we just hold back and wait because it costs a lot of money when you're paying people overtime on the weekends and lawyers and things. And no, we got stuck into it and filed, as you very well have seen, on the 9th, which is part and parcel of that email. So the document is done and dusted, filed well before the 7th of September. So you've picked yourselves up with nearly 30 days bonus if that was the case of bringing that in to play early. Now, it doesn't mean there's an opportunity for AUSTRAC to take it, extend it any further. It just means that if on this basis that's the best that they've thrown at us in terms of what they wanted that particular document, because remember, in the email, AUSTRAC did advise that the AML CTF program must be in place before Zutopia provides any designated VASP services. Now, that's a pretty strong statement from AUSTRAC that talks about the correlation between what they required, the document that must be presented before we can commence services. Now, that's a big plus. That's a big takeaway that we should get excited about, because they could have written something else there. Like, if you provide the AML CTF program, there are no guarantees you're going to get anything. That could have been worded that way. So that's the sort of a half glass empty wording, whereas what we did get is the half glass full wording from AUSTRAC in a very positive tone that says, look, get this stuff together, and you, in terms of the AML CTF program, which we filed, which is the version 1.0, the VASP program, it must be in place. And if it's going to be in place, then that's a pretty good indicator that we're heading down the right direction for registration. That's Dr. Zoo's takeaway anyway. So that's the basis upon which we wanted to make sure, and you've been provided with some pretty extensive information in relation to what's been contained within that document. It's pretty, and in fact, very, very comprehensive. There's been a sort of a summary of the material that's been included in that document. And guess what? The only reason you need these programs and policies and documents and things is to look after you guys. The government wants to help you. It wants to protect you and make sure that you're only dealing with good money. You're not dealing with crooks. You're not dealing with people that are caught up in this money laundering world and all the rest of it. So, in fact, you probably should send a note to AUSTRAC thanking them, because it is AUSTRAC that's only thinking of you, the consumer. So rather than getting all worked up and carried away, guess what? Thank them and say, thanks for helping. Thanks for pulling this together. This is fantastic. I'm so excited. I'm going to be, and you are, and all our ZuCoin Australian holders are going to be fully compliant. What a wonderful outcome. So that's a big positive. Now, let's circle back to some of these questions that we have here and see what happens. Let's see. We've got Magnificent Pal. I'm with you, Dr. Zoo. We voted these clowns into Parliament. We live with, well, that says it all on that front. So Dr. Zoo regrets voting for some people over the journey over the years. And let me tell you, in my court case of 27 years, I've been through every Australian Prime Minister involved in that case, Labor or Liberal. I think the biggest, I shouldn't say it, but the biggest goose I've had in that journey has been Julia Gillard. What a unit that was. What a journey that was. And don't get me wrong, I would have thought in the early days there that Scott Morrison would have been all right, or Malcolm Turnbull, but gee, they hit the wall pretty hard. What a total waste of time that turned out to be. Could have been one of the greatest potential leaders the country's ever seen, and what do we get? Nothing. So it's a bit of a raffle, as Dr. Zoo suggests. These people come out of a witty packet and garner a few votes, and next thing we've got them running the show, and we end up in trouble. It's just not quite right. It's not quite right yet. It's not quite right yet, the system. In fact, the system's been hijacked. I bet you're not aware of this, but I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight before we get back into the journey of these questions. The Australian Senate under the Constitution was never a body of people designed to be controlled on parliamentary lines. For example, We have the Greens at the moment as a body of people under the Greens banner that are effectively controlling the passing of legislation. You then have independents there in there like Pocock and Jackie Lambie, who passed this ridiculous law that we're all caught up with called making arrangements. I've said it again, I'll say it again. 2 words that have affected the position of many businesses, not just the business in relation to Zutopia, but the more and more stories and people that catch up with Dr. Zoo who are in accounting practices. In fact, he was talking to one young accountant last week that was off his tree about the changes in their programs and systems to accommodate all of this sort of AML stuff is horrendous, not just from a software perspective, but it costs money to look after you people, because that's what the government wants us to do. Spend more money of your hard-earned money to reduce the cost of the government so that they can then put in place these crazy laws. So if you look at the extent of that and the power of what government can do and put that in place, it's a tough ask because they get passed in the things like the Senate. Now, if you go back to the original formation of the Constitution from our founding fathers, and I think from memory on the weekend or even this week, Sir Samuel Griffith is having a anniversary date, and these were great men that had incredible legal knowledge to create these documents that we sit back and have to follow to this very day. And the Constitution is one of our greatest documents. But you won't believe this. The Senate was never meant to be on party lines. It was never meant to be a Senate full of Labor or a Senate full of Liberals or a Senate full of independents like Pocock and stuff. The Senate was designed as representation of the states. Now, ironically, when you go and vote, and you vote in the state of New South Wales, you're supposed to be appointing senators for the betterment of the state you're in. They're not there to represent the Liberal or Labor Party that relates to some voting bloc that allows things to be passed for the hell of it because it affects other Labor jurisdictions and all over the place. It's supposed to be the representation of the state that you're in, because that's how the Constitution was formed. Between the states said, let's protect our rights and let's not have the Commonwealth have this overarching governing body outside of the plankdums in Section 51, which is basically a list of things that the Commonwealth can and can't do, and let the lower house be run if that ends up in that basis with the majority of people that collectively form a body. These are Labor Party, Liberal, whatever, or Nationals coming up, one nation rather. But the Senate was there as a body to preserve and protect the rights of each of the state representatives. Now, that's been hijacked. Not many people know that. That has been hijacked, and that's a constitutional issue, which means you've got to live with the problems that now surface as a result of this, including the amendments to the AML-CTF Act, which we sit here and we can whinge and carry on till the cows come home, but it's what it is, and we work with it. Because at the end of the day, you get the tick, suddenly you're a world-class institution that takes you to new levels. And that is the holy grail that Dr. Zoo is flipping towards and wanting to chase. Because after all these years in the journey, and you get that box together with possibly, hopefully we're into the finalists of the Australian Financial Review to recognise the technology that's been built, then yes, indeed, it's a big outcome that is worthy of the delay and the time, which is why Dr. Zoo, as I said earlier in the show, stopped wanting to go for a little drinky on the weekend and put in, I think, 3 hours of sleep on tops. And we are in box seat that the ball is firmly on the other side of the tennis court, back into AUSTRAC's side of the court. And they now have this extra time to make these decisions, and let's see where it goes. So not much a lot more I can say about that. Now, we got a couple of nice questions here. Oh, I love this. This is a great guest. You are yes, you are one of the ones that I would have loved to have trolled, and if I hadn't got banned on, X and all that for calling Albo a Hamas bumlicker. That's turned out to be pretty true, but great guess. Let's share your comments because it's worthy of the commentary and the note on the Dr. Zoo show. You have said, quote, it would have been all done if Alan Andrews had not been such a dickhead back in 2018 and gone ahead and tried to do the registration then, and not went about his usual form to try and avoid the legal process. Well, great guest. You're showing some really interesting colours now. What I'd like to share with you is, unless Alan Andres, and he's very well known to Dr. Zoo, but unless Alan Andres had the capacity for time travel, I'm not sure how he could go back in time when the legislation, which has impacted upon all exchanges, which wasn't even thought of really back then, but nevertheless, if he had the capacity for time travel and could go back in time, then maybe he could have a vision of what was to come in 2025 and 2026, particularly when the AML CTF laws were amended and changed in January of 2026, then yes, he could have done the registration. Now, we know he has some talent, this Alan Andrews. He has a lot of talent, but the ability to go back in time and preempt legislation that wasn't ever in existence in 2018, because the only legislation back then, of course, was what was determined as being very successful, which is on the website, zoocoins.com, people. Plenty of information. You may recall, or you may not, but on the website, there is a link to the official documentation from AUSTRAC, when particularly at that time under the law as it stood. You may read it for yourself. I know it's going to be hard to believe. Great guest. It's difficult to accept these things, but you will find there is some documentation there that clearly shows that AUSTRAC had done an inquiry back then under the laws and had fully approved all of the Zoocoin processes and wallets, etc., as being exempt under the laws as they existed. Exempt. Now, that included ASIC as well, so there is a documentation about that effect. But of course, if you have the capacity for time travel, then why stop at 2018? Great guest. Dr. Zoo probably would have gone back a lot further than that. And there was a couple of points in history where he could go back, and one would be to what he knows now as to how he would have won the $4.3 billion a bit sooner with the government, how he would have released the lottery, which is now coming by tokenisation. That's why the Zutopia is important, which has now had $5 trillion plus of monies around the world, and the British premium bonds is worth $330 billion. Could have gone back before that to the 1987 crash and bought up all these, or gone short selling rather, of all the stocks before the crash. And yes, it would have been a huge opportunity if only dickheads could go back in time. But take your point. Appreciate what you're saying. It was very well written. Thank you very much. So, no dramas with that. We've got some good ones there. Keep up the good work, team. Thank you very much for that. Kind being, that is very kind indeedy. That's a very, very complimentary name there that you have, and also away we go with that. So thank you very much. Mysterious citizen, you're a dick, then regs were not needed. Thank you. Not sure about what that means, but if you need regs, that's great. Yes, 2018, great guest. Not sure what that's got to do with anything about it started, because that's how it was. That was the Zoocoins wallet, which had very little to do, as I said. But if we could go back in time and we could preempt the journey of legislation that subsequently followed, then yes, away we go. But yes, 24th of April, 2018 was the beginnings of the beginning. Now you're referring back to the original creation. So yes, that's been a 7-year journey. But let me remind you something about that. Whilst we've got 55 odd million knocked up in terms of the total cost for the enterprise across the board, and there's a lot of money goes out in legals, I can assure you. Just remember, Dr. Zoo keeps very close to his heart the original Libra paper produced by Facebook by the great Mark Zuckerberg when crypto was on fire and he wanted to dominate the world. And he used the terminology. He said, nobody will create an autonomous, permissionless-based crypto. That is the sovereign right and control in your hands. And yes, that's in the original Libra white paper. You might even not find it these days. I'm not sure if they took it down, but Dr. Zoo's got a hard copy and a PDF copy. Why? Because in that document, it talks about 10,000 developers and possibly $1 billion that would be required to create what you are sitting on right now. How exciting is that? That's inspirational. So while we lose a bit of time here and there, away you go. And look, you all know the journey of Bitcoin. It's been an 18-year overnight success, and it's starting to unravel with some of the big problems because of the road it has taken. And some of it literally has been because they haven't stuck to Satoshi's original rules in the way it was created. Very naughty indeed. They should have, Satoshi suggested only that private keys be used, encrypted private keys, which can unlock and unleash the value of coins in wallets, etc. But no, some other clever persons decided that seed phrases, you all know what a seed phrase is, that's the random collection of words that combine so that you're supposed to remember it. It's supposed to be 24 of them, 24 random words, and they all come together, and those words are supposed to be your ability to open up the wallets with your Bitcoin in it. And guess what's happened? They didn't do the randomness of that, and they certainly caused problems, as we've just seen with Cold Card. People have had lots of, in fact, it's 130 million plus already of their money lost simply by waking up one night, turning on their wallet, and it's gone. We do not want that to happen, and we've done everything humanly possible to make sure. Our mission has been to protect the coins, to make them transferable, to create the ability for sovereign control, which is what's been delivered and has happened, that you can have two-factor authentication, the only crypto in the world that does that. You then have the split chain only caching the last transaction and balance, which is not ever happening anywhere in the world with blockchain, which gives greater scalability and, of course, maximizing utility for the eventuality of tokenization, which is circling back to Zukaz and other real-world assets that we want to get into play. And at the end of the day, the greater the demand, the greater the price, because there's a fixed supply, and you all know Dr. Zoo's use of the quantity theory of money. Quantity theory of money. Have a look at it. There is a in-depth analysis of that on zoocoins.com as well. Of course, don't forget, as we always remind you, myzoocoins.org. That is the brainchild and the thought processes coming from CTO Robert Novak. You have the firepower happening behind the scenes with Z8 Digital, and z8digital.com. You certainly have the new website, which is absolutely brilliant. We only have half glass full people on Zutopia.com. Absolutely magic. That gives me tingles just looking at that site where that's heading with trading. At the end of the day, registration just ticks the box that allows the ability for people 24 hours, 7 days a week to be trading on Zutopia when it's up and about. Beautiful. Beautiful. There's a question here I'll take from Peaceful Human. Hi, Alan. Is your side of the AUSTRAC requested ready to go or is in place already? Yeah, if you have a look at the email covers that we locked and loaded and sent the required official notice requested information, which is the expanded, increased, pretty powerful looking 44-page document, which is referred to as the AML CTF VASP compliance program version 1.0. 1.0. So that document has gone, and we didn't wait for the timeline that AUSTRAC gave us, which was very kind of them. They believed that it was going to be a pretty big job, and they gave us till the 7th of September. So we've brought that forward, and that has gone and is in the hands. We have received notification. Funnily enough, an automated email came back on yesterday, from AUSTRAC confirming that they have received the information. This is the regulatory division in relation to the document. So now we sit and wait. We wait to see what happens. Let's see. We have a peaceful guest. I'll tackle that one. Your question is, Australia's formal virtual asset service provider regime took effect on March 31, 2026, implemented by AUSTRAC under the anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism laws. This system modernised and replaced the older digital exchange classification to better target crypto assets. That is pretty correct. Yes, I think if you go back, you'll see there's a timeline history that AUSTRAC has provided about these money laundering changes and legislation provisions. There is quite a lot of history there to that effect that you can check and track the dates of these things that have been happening. But the big effect, there was an amendment in the legislation in 2025, late 2025, and then it got sort of smashed into gear in the January in relation to the updates, which then took effect. So, bit of a bugger, but let's just see how that goes. Now, mysterious character. This is an interesting. This was actually put to me over the weekend. This was interesting. Now just sit back, think about what I'm about to say. If you have to, just lean back in your chair and think about this. Now, the question from mysterious character is this. Hi, Dr. Zoo. Could consideration be given to commencing trading in the rest of the world? This would provide valuable insight into market interest and help establish an indicative price position to Australia entering the market. Now, I'm going to give you, mysterious character, 10 out of 10 for such a positive question that could be taken in that light as to the benefits of actually unleashing Zutopia to the exclusion of Australia around the world. Firstly, you're spot on. As the laws around the world stand, and that is through the bigger jurisdictions where we've got a big footprint that we want to unleash with the mass marketing, and we're talking about South America, we are talking about Europe, we're talking about North America, Canada, and we swing back into action in South Africa, certainly a bit in Asia. We're talking about the capacity in India that we've checked out. So our legal teams have determined that Zutopia, because of the way of the structure, which the laws are slightly different but consistent in those countries, Zutopia would not need to be registered in any jurisdiction, ironically, other than here in Australia. So, funnily enough, if you get through the worst of it here, you've got a free ride from the rest of the world, or we could simply just say that's the end of the Australian market in the short term. Now, it was put on the table, firmly on the table. What about Zutopia dumps the Australian market in the short term? Now, obviously, mysterious character, you've come up with a reason as to why it would be a good thing in the short term to actually open the markets up and get them going. Now, let me just paint this picture. We have somewhere in the order of 10,000 plus Australian loyal early adopters, mostly mum and dads. Got some big hitters. Remember, we've got a Zutopia out there to put the better part of nearly $14 million into the project. 14 million. So that's 14 millions more than anyone else has done. I can assure you, 14 million. Think about that. And these are Australian residents. Now, under the law, if Zutopia, for example, could rightly open up its operations in Singapore, certainly take advantage of tax issues there and so on, or Dubai or one of those places, could be just downtown Boston in the US of A, where we've got US-based businesses that have been registered there, or we could be in London. Anyway, you pick a nice sunny spot and Zutopia commences trading. What it would have to do is block every Australian citizen from participating in the trading. Now, that sounds okay. I'm sure that, those with dual citizenships and so on would be delighted. They just wouldn't put up the Australian citizenship material for KYC, and away they go, start trading. Now, the worst thing about that, this is the half glass empty, people. Remember Dr. Zoo, he loves talking about for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Well, let me tell you what the reaction would be. There probably would be no shortage, not taking this lightly, but no shortage of death threats against Dr. Zoo and his entire teams, because the worst thing that could happen is that we get a couple of shots at this and the world market says, how good's this? The Fin Review comes in and says, what an incredible system. We're getting a free audit from the Australian government. These are the AUSTRAC reviews. And the rest of the world sits back and laughs at the Aussies because we lose a lot of technology to the world. Don't get me wrong. There's been some incredible technology that's come out of this country. Dr. Zoo loves his country. Doesn't love some of the peanuts that are running it, but does love this country for the generations ahead. We've got some incredible businesses, some incredible people. And guess what? If the price started to move big time around the world, and we're talking 500,000, 2,000, 10,000 a coin, if not more, can you imagine the reaction of 10,000 plus early adopters that have put risks into the strategy, into the crypto space? How would they react? Knowing they've got no hope in trading out or using their crypto as part of that trading platform to buy or sell. Now, it's just not worth the pain. It's just not worth the pain. We get enough email queries as it is about delays and things, and we can see that clearly with some of the reactions we get, which has got nothing to do with Dr. Zoo. I mean, this might come as a surprise, but Dr. Zoo doesn't run AUSTRAC. It might be a surprise, I know, and I understand. I understand that some people think that Dr. Zoo is, behind the scenes, the shadow administrator of the Australian government and making wealth for himself based on some of the things by taking wealth away from others, but that's not the case. That is one conspiracy theory that hasn't stood the test of time. It would be a disaster. Happy to be proven wrong, but that is an option that could actually happen, where Dr. Zoo says, nah, I had enough, excuse me, gets on the plane, parks his butt with all his Bahamian friends over there and enjoying the 25-degree waters, turquoise waters of the Bahamian Caribbean, and stays there like a pirate and says, look, bad luck. The Australian population will have to define and develop their own trading platforms, and will have to continue with expanding their own markets as they see fit in a permissionless, autonomous-based network, and play catch up. Well, the rest of us, and there's a lot of people that can be plunking themselves in different jurisdictions. Croatia looks pretty good this time of the year. If they're doing that, it's not going to be pleasant. So that was a commercial, factual decision, mysterious character, that was decided upon way back. We're in this together. We push it together. We don't all contribute money together in terms of the costs that, get chewed up as a result of these timelines. You think about it. Goodness me, Dr. Zoo, if only those peanuts hadn't changed those words of making arrangements in January, which affected us in February and March, we'd be sitting sweet. We'd be pushing to see how hard this price of the coin goes, but in any event, we'd have some liquidity without a cash burn rate. That's about that's about 1.3 million odd dollars plus that Dr. Zoo's had to put up with, waiting for others. It can get frustrating, but not to worry. The rewards are in the long-term benefits, so just sit tight. Now, great guest. We will touch base here. We'll touch base here to see. Oh, here we go. We've just had a little note that's come through. We've just had a little note. There's been another malware hijack of Google synced passkeys. Unbelievable. It's happening all over the shop. We're sitting pretty comfortable, people. Pretty comfortable. And as I said, the free review from AUSTRAC has been phenomenal. So let's just praise ourselves and give a bit of pat on the back that we're doing it the hard yards, but we're getting the rewards in terms of maximising. Nothing's ever 100% guaranteed. There's going to be a few people out there that are going to fall for some tricks, false websites or false wallets down the road. We've got a few things that we're putting in train on that front as well, and that's all assisting with this. So, look, it's happening all the time. That's just come through from Robert in terms of what's going on around the world. So if you're a massive billions worth dollar of company like Google and you can't protect passkeys, well, we've got a real problem. It's going to get worse, and just wait until the quantum computing nightmare starts. We're still well and truly beavering away behind the scenes with that, because that will give us the ultimate edge. Well, you mightn't even have any money left in your bank account the way it's going, because they won't be protecting. If they're not quantum safe, there'll be a real issue. Now, great guest. Let's see. I hope Alan got it right with his reply, as it was very quick. The 90 days goes to the 7th, the 11th, and could be extended another 30 days or more, then likely another 90 days when they come back with more questions. Look, in that timeline, we all could be seconded to the Australian Army fighting China. I mean, there's so many variables there. If this is the extent of the material, there's not a lot more we can support back to AUSTRAC, because they've been digging so deep on stuff. They've got what we can possibly even provide. So there's no point second guessing this sort of nonsense down the road. In terms of that, we got the replies. It's in their hands, and let's just hope that we've got. It's funny actually, because when you think about it, we must be the only entity in Australia that's actually pressuring AUSTRAC to be registered. I mean, there's not many. You think about it. There's not many people that want to go down this road. It's quite odd, actually. And here we are, badgering away at AUSTRAC and demanding almost, please, make us comply, force us. Here we go. So I wouldn't be too worried about. Great guest. You're in the lap of the gods with the bureaucrats, and away you go. You just got to sort of sit tight. So they'll be right. They'll do their job, and away we go. Now, KZ has come in. I'll probably start to wind down a bit here on the questions. Let's have a look. Let's have a look here. We've got KZ saying he's using ChatGPT, so very nice to disclose your AI, KZ. That is perfect. And it says, what I infer from the notice, this is my interpretation, not something stated by AUSTRAC. The notice is actually quite narrow. It isn't asking for new owners, new directors, financial viability, technical business changes, or changes to application. Instead, it asks for further AML CTF information for the proposed VASP services. To me, that suggests the regulator has reached a stage where it wants to understand whether the AML CTF framework is sufficient for registration. This is a better position to be in than having fundamental concerns about the applicant's identity, ownership, or suitability. Look, that's a fair call. which is interesting from AI. Now, that's a very good call that's come back as a response, which is great. But the biggest concern that which teases that out a little bit more, KZ, is if there was complexities in the actual processing flows would have itself have been great concern to Dr. Zhu, because it is extraordinary technology. As I said, think about it. There is not an exchange in the world. And look, I've said it before, Dr. Zhu, if you are a genius out there that's running these exchanges, or you are Satoshi and you want a quick conversation with Dr. Zhu, call in, because all of the exchanges rely on blockchain or blockchains in terms of the technology that integrates with the ability to trade the tokens or coins that are produced off those blockchains. All the blockchains have, by consensus, they're either running proof of stake or proof of work, which means there is computer nodes. Nodes, a glorified word for a computer, basically a server, that are processing and validating transactions back into the block. Now, that's a huge distinction between the way we have structured the architecture of the split chain layer 1 native protocol. That's its official title, because we don't process, the chain doesn't process a thing. It stores the cached information, being the last balance and transaction. All of the heavy lifting and processing is done directly by you. That is every ZuCoin holder with a wallet, with all of the bits and pieces inside the code of the wallet that allows you to communicate with someone else to transfer value with two-factor authentication and instant notification, which allows then to be verified against the last cached bit of information in the split chain. Now, that's a huge fundamental shift from anything that's presently in the world. It's a bit like, as I've said in the past, there's some people that wanted to run around with horse and buggies and then realise that there's a bloke down the road with these things called the Model T car. And they jumped into that and said, how good's this? Now, the only connection between the car and the horse and buggy was they said that the car had so much horsepower. It's just chalk and cheese. And that horsepower we're talking about here with split chain is because it's what, as I said earlier, good old Mark Zuckerberg and the Libra project couldn't deliver. And that's scalability, and that's ability to have all of these utility products or tokens on top that get processed directly before what was happening. So that is or would have been of greater concern if there was some roadblocks there that AUSTRAC had identified as their priority before the end of the 90-day. I know they left at the last minute, but that means they've been doing some homework, because they would have been researching all of the stuff, not just only what we gave them, which is extensive, by the way. The application was very extensive with all of the flows and proformas and how the system operates, especially with Stripe, because there's nothing in the world that's working like Zutopia. And our concern, which should be right front and centre of AUSTRAC, is you, the people, all of us, to protect the coins as much as we can, to create adoption that's easy, to take away all of the things that's currently happening, which is all happening now. If people start to get inside of cold card wallets and traces and phony websites that are happening to get your wallet information and seed phrases, breaking into things, as we've just seen, compromising Google passcodes and things, and there's the humble little ZuCoin in its wallet beavering away because it's maximised its protections. Not saying it's 100% secure, but we're just saying it's right up there. And it's right up there because it's going to be adopted through what we succeeded with the earlier transactions in Zutopia. And the app in Zutopia is looking sensational. Sensational. We've got long caching coming too, by the way. You don't want to understand what that is, but that's a little tweak that's been worked on for some time that'll take the security of a transaction with an institution like Stripe to another level. You will not be able to refute anything, even though we've got 3DS, even though we've got the tracking mechanisms in terms of the transaction flows and the notifications that happen. And of course, sitting on top of all of that, there's not a crypto in the world that uses notifications for the transaction-based confirmations when you're transferring value. There's not a single thing. And we know how good that works. You've got the tightening up there that notifies you and pings the phone, and you're going to need that. If you're going to start the big trading, which we will, and the world gates open up, which they will, then, as I've warned you, there will be a big demand for therapists as people have their eyeballs hanging out because they haven't had any sleep. Now, I'm a little bit conditioned to that, Dr. Zoo, over the years, but again, the weekend took its toll. The desperation to make sure we locked and loaded this as soon as possible, I think one day is a major pat on the back for the team, and putting that in play because the benefit is for all of us, not just Jatoshi or the great other big people that have taken some big positions in ZooCoins down the road. So I hope that's addressed all of that. Staff might love to be paid in ZooCoins. Well, we're already ahead of you there. We have staff being paid in ZooCoins. So that's already been going for some years now. So don't worry about that. They've taken a risk in terms of getting paid in ZooCoins, which is awesome. And I might just finish. Oh, gee, you've really come in with some big questions today, people. Yeah, curious gem. That's a fascinating one because I've often wondered that about myself, actually. But the question is, I wonder if Dr. Zoo's tumultuous relationship with government, various departments and levels, is having a negative impact and affecting the willingness of AUSTRAC to progress the approval. That's a possibility. That could be said. There's a lot of angry people in the world, but they don't have to be in government to have a tumultuous relationship. That's why there's a 40% divorce rate, 45, or even more than that, because people aren't getting married. So you can find tumultuous wherever you go in life. The beautiful thing about the humanity that we are all experiencing around the world is that there will always be someone that hates you. Now, I know that's a bit harsh, but you just have a think about it. Have a look around you, and there's no way anybody ever gets 100% strike rate of being loved by everybody. That is just one of the greatest nonsenses on planet Earth. Remember what I say, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So for every person that loves you, someone will hate you. That is a fact of life. Now, how's that affecting Dr. Zoo? Well, I would say zero, because even though Dr. Zoo has had a journey with the major Department of Finance and still ongoing because there's $4 billion at stake plus interest, which compounds over 27 years. I think it takes it up to last count about $41 billion, and that's US dollars, so you can add a bit more. That's all about the case. In that journey, Dr. Zoo's had a wonderful relationship with many parties, including a lot of friends that have come out of ASIC. ASIC does its job. It's not there to put up a scoreboard and, you get a bad tick. It means it makes it harder for things to happen. Basically, those departments are very focused on the legislation and whether you're inside or outside of the grey lines as to what you're dealing with. But again, I remind you, if you go to the zoocoins.com site, if that theory was to stack, then we wouldn't have the amazing approvals for all of these years as to ZooCoins not being a financial product similar to Bitcoin. And there have been many, many coins that have gone by the wayside because they've breached those provisions under the ASIC Act and the Corporations Act. So it's a factual thing. What has happened, though, the journey of Dr. Zoo makes, because of it, you treat the focus as a result of the current departments and things that we've dealt with and what we're challenging. And we've had some big wins over the years. Don't worry. Dr. Zoo has had his fair share of very, very successful court cases in that journey. Let me say this. It makes it even far more important for Dr. Zoo to be even of a greater level of legal compliance than ever before, because during the course of that litigation, Dr. Zoo's had some of the greatest QCs and KCs that have contributed to the advices and that journey, and some fantastic gentlemen that are right up there. So, no, I wouldn't be worried about that. You just stick tight, stick tight. AUSTRAC has already been through us once before, and we've got a clean bill of health. And I'm still favouring the fact that aside from getting an actual registration, people, which was what we wanted, this is the next best option because it shows that they're wanting us to provide the necessary material, which we've done. There may be more stuff we have to provide, but I'm struggling to see where that could come from or how big that would be. And as pointed out earlier, the other material, they could have come back and said that we're not happy with your police check or the structures are not right. And we've done that before with regulators like the racing industry, and we've come up trumps with the way in which we presented ourselves in the longer term. So let's just sit tight on that because AUSTRAC's doing its job. I'm very happy with that outcome outside of getting fully registered today because they were kind enough to give us that extra extension to the 7th of September. We didn't take advantage of that. We've filed and we will just sit back and wait and see how we go. So in the meantime, you can rest assured Dr. Zoo's team's not just sitting back having pina coladas or enjoying the wines on their trips. They are busier than ever. Let me just say, they are busier than ever. We can put some other things in train, and it is looking fantastic. You really do need to see the new website, Zutopia.com. All of the new website information on zoocoins.com. There are massive updates on my zoocoins.org. The boys are working diligently behind the scenes on the Zutopia app. That's going to be phenomenal. The mass marketing capabilities are accelerating at a rate of knots. We haven't been sitting idle on that either. When I say that, you don't need many numbers to increase the turnover. Our mission is wanting to get between $30 and $100 million turnover a day. That will certainly satisfy all of those out there because the next thing they'll be having the half glasses coming out about the price of the coins. If we hit our straps, then that shouldn't be a problem because people will be wanting to suck coins out of everybody because there's not enough to go around. You are very, very lucky people. There's not enough to go around, especially when you start accelerating the growth of utility and everything else that we've talked about. It is phenomenal. So look out on that front. Well, let me just wind it up here. Well, you're all talking amongst yourself, which is awesome. Let's just see. No, thank you for all your commentaries there, people. We're really delving deep into the positives and the half glass full people. So you've smashing it out of the park. Happy to wait for the launch. Good job, team. Confidence. Appreciate that. Fantastic stuff. We're always going to get people that want to challenge us. And don't get me wrong. The reality is that yes, we're in the position we are, but it's all for the bigger picture and the longer term, and just got to grit our teeth, work our way through it, not get distracted by it, and away you go. So there is an example for great guest about exchanges. My good mate, not a good mate, well, I know of him and know what he was trying to achieve and spent millions of dollars with the exchange called Elbait. Elbait, great guest, doesn't exist anymore. Spent millions of dollars, was operating for 3 or 4 years. Very good turnover, good concept. Got caught up in the escrow accounts debacle. They didn't lose people's money, but they certainly took the decision that it was all too hard because of the way in which their exchange was structured, which is the general consensus. Unless you've got big bucks, there's no point creating an exchange. It's very, very expensive. There's litigation going all over the place. Binance has sued another crew for stealing their customers the other day for $473 million US. This is the sort of behavioural things that are happening, and all of that puts consumers' monies at risk because they retain custodialship in most instances of either crypto or fiat. And good luck trying to get your money out of that, because that's where this mess has happened, and it all stems from and hasn't changed from the very first operational day of FTX and Alameda Research, which is your great Sam Bankman-Fried, who's enjoying a free holiday with government bodies in some cells in America. So we don't want to go down that road. And I'm going to wrap up now just with the Peaceful Guest has put up for people to have a quick look at the website of AUSTRAC, and there is a search engine there, which is quite right, which allows you to search the names of registered virtual asset service providers. Now, the names you should insert there, if you want to check, is either EasyBonds, EZYBONDS, or you can put in Zutopia. So if any of those come up with a big tick, you make sure, if you know that before we do, then you, boom shakalaka, bring it to our attention. And Riley, who is sitting in the fringes there with his team, will turn Zutopia on. And then we can really get stuck into things and have a great time. Because I'm getting frustrated with having to work extra weekends when everybody's having time off, and Dr. Zoo could be at the horse track. That's where he wants to be. Quiet time, a little bit of quiet time. The good thing about horses, people, on this closing note is I've never had a horse answer me back yet. Not once. I haven't had a horse whinge. I've never had a horse that's complained. They do their work. They do their job. They're amazing creatures, and they are just lovable animals that respect and want to be. If you treat them kindly with a kind eye, they are an amazing thing, animal to be part of, or sport to be part of. And here we go now. We're going to have another round of wombats trying to destroy that industry, which is so big, of what comes with it. And for the wrong reasons, they're trying to destroy that industry. It's been around for 500 plus or more years for the enjoyment of humans. So, happy note, people. Sit tight. If you've got anything else that you need to share or experiences with problems, I'm interested in people. The Zutopia app is live. You can't trade, but you can do the processes, the onboarding. We want to see we're getting a steady stream of connections between Zucoin wallets and Zutopia. That's the most important one, and the way you fill out your compliance. If you're not ready, then don't go blaming anybody else because you couldn't be bothered. If you have a problem, screenshot it, send it to support@zootopia.com. If you have a Zucoin problem, which I'd be blown away, you couldn't possibly have a Zucoin problem. It would be staggering. But anyway, send it to support@zoocoins.com as well. The processes are absolutely brilliant and getting even more so. So follow those instructions, send your problems through, get on board with it, check out the website, share what's happening, because it can then rapidly turn if we come back with a very big green tick from AUSTRAC. So you know we're in the thick of it. We're doing, the team is working hard for you. Don't worry about sending anybody any pay or money to help out. You just sit tight, relax, enjoy yourselves, and we'll do the heavy lifting on all fronts. So cheerio, everybody. Have a great one. Got a little nice tune here to finish up on. I think it's a beauty. So we'll leave it at that and catch up on Thursday. You never know. Some news might come out of left field, and that'll change the whole dynamic of where we're at, because it is running beautifully.